so we have the mean 41.5. The second column is we find the deviation. How we find the deviation? We would take the values that we have minus the mean. So I'm going to start with 41. 41. Okay. So I will take 41. Whoops. Easy for me to write. Okay, so I'm going to take 41. My pen is not working. 41 minus 41.5. That gives me negative 0.5. So that's my first deviation. I'm going to do the same for all of them. So this is your next step. So I'm going to take 38. Okay. $38 minus 41.5, and that will give me a different number. So let's jot it down. Okay, so for those who know what to do, I apologize, but just bear with me. Okay, we'll finish up with this one. So if I subtract, let's get me, I hate this one. It's not, give you negative 3.5. And I will do the same thing for the next one. I'm choose the next one, which is 39. So 39 minus 41.5, that would give me negative 2. 2.5, okay? Okay, any questions? How we feel about the second column? Does that remind you of how we got those numbers? Is that okay? Good. So what I'm going to do right now, instead of subtract all of them, what I would do, what you do to get these numbers, you're just going to subtract and get those values. So we okay with the second column now? Is that fine? So instead of me subtract all of those, I already have the values, so let's save the time and I'm not going to subtract all of them if you feel good with that. The next step for the third column, what we do is we take the deviation, which is the values that I just got, the difference that I just got, I'm going to square it. So that's the notation, x minus the mean to the second power. That's what it say. I will square the deviation. So over here, my deviation is negative 0.5. So I'm going to square negative 0.5, which give me 0.25. Then I will do for the next one, square negative 0.35, and that will give me the next value, okay? And that will be 12.25. I'm doing the next one, the negative 2.5, square it. That would give me 6.25. So that's how I got the values for my third column. Okay, we good, Jamila? You okay? Okay, so what I'm going to do right now, we got these values. I'm going to go back to the table that we already have the values filled out, so that we're not going to spend too much time on this one. Okay, so whoops, that's not what I want. So over here, these are the values that we got. Okay, so by subtract, I got these deviation, I square them, and I got this third column. What I do is I find the total. I add all of these values that give me 88.5. So I got 88.5. That's the total. For the rest of you, you're not saying anything. It's making me nervous. Like, are we okay? What's going on? In the chat, let me know, please. Okay. So we got the total is 88.5. Okay. So I'm going to write out the steps for you. Okay. Step number 1 is to find the mean. So we got the mean. Step number 2, we find the deviation. So this is step number 2. Step number 3 is where we square it. This is step number 3. Step number 4 is when we find the total. So I'm going to jot down step number 4. So this is step number 4. My iPad is acting up today. I cannot write anything, sorry. So this is step number 4. Okay, to find the total. Step number 1 is you find the average. So this is a total. And then we have step number 5. What you do is you take the total and divide by the n. So this is standard deviation. We have 2 more steps, okay? All right, so step number, Miss Lady, I also recorded this so I can post a video, but I'm going to go back. So for this next one, step number 5, that's what you're going to do is that you take the total, which is 88.5, you divide by the total. So you will take the total, divide by n. In this case, n is 10. How do we know 10? Because there's 10 people. So I will divide by 10. That's step number 5. And the last step to find standard deviation, step number 6, is that I'm just going to take the square root of that. So 88.5 divided by 10. That should give you a number. Okay, so I'm going to use my calculator. So the step that I've just revised, if you need to ask me which steps is which, we can go back. So 88.5 divided by 10, then I'm take the square root of that, which give me 2.97. So this is my standard deviation. The value is 2.97. So think about all the work that we have done. It took you about 10 minutes, right? Just to get that number. That is the standard deviation. So to find the standard deviation, the final step is not bad. It's just step 2 and step 3. It takes us a lot of time. So step number 1, find the mean. Step number 2, find the deviation. Step number 3, square it. Step number 4, find the total. Step number 5, take that total, divide by how many people that we have. And the last step is take square root of it. Okay. So we're not going to talk about what that means today. We're not going to interpret the mean yet. We're not going to read and say what is the standard deviation mean in certain situation. But for today, we're just going to practice how to find it. How we do. Okay. We you're probably not going to have question until you start doing the work. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, but remember we have two companies to look at. This is company A, and I want you to look at company B and do it. So I'm going to move to the next slide. So go ahead and take a picture of this. These are the steps. I'm going to put the steps back in the chat for you, so if you remember, like, what do I do first? Okay, so if you label on your note step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, step number 4, step number 5, and step number 6, that should help you, like, okay, this is what I do next. So I know it sounds silly, but just take a couple seconds, label it. How we know the 10 is how many people there are, okay? All right, this is company B. We have the salary for company B. It's the same thing, but it's different people with different amounts of money. So we have 40, 22, 41, 50, all of that, okay? All right, so this is the one that I want you to work on, okay? So step number 1 is to find the mean. So I'm going to put down the mean. Step number 1, find the mean, what that is. Step number 2, I'm going to remind you of the step, and I'm going to ask you to practice. What I would do is, I'm going to check in, I will look at the product, or if you do in a piece of paper, that's fine. Send it to me so I can take a look. This is the deviation. So the second column to find the deviation, what you can do is you take the values, x minus the mean. And then for the third column, this is step number 2. This is step number 3. This is the total on the bottom is step number 4. And then you can do step 5 and 6, okay? All right, go ahead and start. I will look in product. If you feel comfortable to use product to do it, then that's fine. If you don't feel comfortable to do it and do it on a piece of paper, that is fine too. Email it to me so that I can take a look at your work. Now's the time for you to go crazy with it. If you make a mistake, it's okay. Oh, this looked like a 2. I meant to write question mark. Okay. All right, go ahead and start. I will take a look at your work and give you feedback.